what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of the Between the Lines podcast. Me, Daniel, and my buddy Michael. First off, let's get one thing out of the way. Michael got himself a new truck.
Yes, I did.
Yes, sir.
Big boy purchase, 2020 Ram
Big boy
1500.
purchase. Yes,
Uh,
sir. Some unfortunate accident happened, in which led him to get a truck.
yes.
So, he got himself a
Watch
nice
out for them
little.
deer.
Yeah, watch out for them deer. They come out of nowhere. So, but we're glad that Mike's okay and that he got himself a good old truck. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir. Just want to get that out of the way real quick. But yeah,
Thank you,
man,
brother.
episode 12, week 12 of the NFL season. And it's flying by quick, man. Um,
Man, it's flying by, man. It's
it
flying by.
hasn't even felt like we've been doing this for 12 weeks. It's been going by pretty fast. But we got lots to talk about today. We got some subjects. We'll obviously talk about Carolina and the Monday night game in the end, but we want to get through some games that was pretty interesting that we thought we should talk about on the podcast today, man. So first thing on the agenda, Bills versus Texans, Thursday night football that happened last week. Josh Allen, the Bills going into Houston, going up against a backup quarterback in Davis Mills. Mills coming into the game undefeated as a starter this year, replacing the injured C.J. Stroud, who, obviously he didn't light up the stat sheet or anything, but he played as a game manager. He managed the Texans to win offensively, in which it's obviously what you could ask for in Davis Mills, coming in at that point on prime time. Obviously, you're not going to be expecting what you typically see out of C.J. Stroud in them. But the main point that I really want to focus out of this game is the Texans defense. Um, the defense played lights out. I mean, they're ranked number one defense in the league for a reason. When you have two monsters on the defensive line with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, those guys coming at both directions, it's going to be very hard for any opposing quarterback. And that D line combined for 8 sacks on the night. So when you can get that kind of production out of your defensive line, defense in general, that's going to be a huge key um, in having a win. So, and if you're watching that game, that place was electric, was loud. You could tell that they were really feeling behind that crowd on defense. And they got to Josh Allen 8 times, which is something that you don't see, and particularly out of that Bills offensive line. So, kudos to defense. I know D'Amico Ryan always has some guys playing on defense. So, really good for them. Holding the Bills to 19 points as well. So, obviously, if you can hold the Bills to 19, you're going to have a pretty good chance to win because they are a high scoring team on offense. So, really, good stuff from them. And they also forced 2 interceptions out of Josh Allen. So, when the defense, gives you that kind of production and your offense isn't turning the ball over, isn't, giving the Bills defense, that kind of messy game on the offense, you're going to have a good chance to win. And that's what the Texans did. They're 6-5 on the year now after starting the year 0-3. So it's really, good from the Texans' point of view. I think they're first or second in the division, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really know on that part. I forgot, but yeah, really, it's really what you could ask for out of the Texans so far at this point in the season after C.J. Stroud going down with concussion and then having Davis Mills come in. But Mike, I just want to get your thoughts reaction on this game and what you think about the Texans defense, what you've seen from them so far.
Yeah, I think you hit all the key points. They're a young defense, obviously led by Will Anderson, who they also traded up to get a few years back, and it seems like it's paying off. He's an impressive ball player coming out of Alabama, playing under Nick Saban. He's a force to be reckoned with. He creates havoc in the backfield. He makes quarterbacks' days uneasy, and that's all you can ask for out of a guy you traded up for. And to pair him up with a veteran and Danielle Hunter, like you said, them two just go to work every game. Like you said, I think it was how many was it 9 combined sacks by the D line or 10? Eight combined sacks by the D line in one game. And like you said, especially against the Buffalo Bills, that's impressive. They've always had a pretty good offensive line. Josh Allen seems to be protected very well up there, but the Texans are creating havoc. Obviously, the record doesn't show it. They're 6-5. Obviously, the offense has struggled. If you look at the offensive stats, they're mostly bottom half in every major category on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive side of the ball is the opposite story. Just to name off a few, they're allowing the second fewest offensive points per game, only allowing 16.6 points per game. The third lowest offensive passing yards per game. That's big. 172.1 yards allowed. They're fifth in rushing defense, 92.2 yards allowed a game. They allowed the third fewest touchdowns all year, only 21 allowed. Like you said, sacks. They're sixth in the NFL in sacks with 33 total, and they're almost averaging 2 takeaways a game. So it's a very good defense. Just to compare them, I think I'd compare them close to the LA Rams defense. They're a young defense who has veterans spread around. They fly around. They create havoc in the backfield. They make a quarterback's day uneasy, and that's what you need, especially when you're going against a guy like Josh Allen, who's been a very good regular season quarterback. He impresses every year. He makes things out of nothing. Obviously, his wide receiver core is not the same as it usually has been, but he's still winning ball games. But shout out to the Texans. Shout out to Davis Mills, man. We want to talk about the defense, but shout out to him. He's undefeated as a starting quarterback this year for the Texans. Obviously, they're going to have a decision to make when C.J. Stroud is healthy and ready to go. If he continues on this, this climb and this journey, how can you take that job away from him if he's winning games for you? You're 6-5. You're battling for a playoff spot. You want to put out the best players who help you win, no matter who it is on your team. If it's a second overall draft pick and C.J. Stroud, if you have to bench him, you have to bench him. Obviously, the Titans did it with Will Levis. The Panthers did it last year with Bryce Young for a short period of time. Sometimes you have to bench that guy if you think somebody else gives you a better chance to win. And it seems like right now Davis Mills gives the best chance to win for the Texans in Houston. Like you said, undefeated as a starter. Beats the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football primetime. And, just to name off a few guys on the defense that really, really stand out. Obviously, Will Anderson, like we said, 23 solo tackles this year. He has 10.5 sacks on the year, 14 tackles for loss. Daniil Hunter leads the team in sacks. He has 20 solo tackles. He has 11 sacks and 11 tackles for loss. And then there's four DBs who have 2+ interceptions on the year. Kamari Lassiter has 2. Kalen Bullock leads the team with 4, and then Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie both have 3 each, respectively. So, they fly around from the D lines to the linebackers to the DBs. It's a well-rounded 11-man group, and it's just a shout out to D'Amico Ryans. He's a very, very, very good defensive mind. That's why they hired him in Houston. The defense has struggled over the years. And if the offense can keep it going with Davis Mills and the defense can keep it going on defense, I think they're going to be a team you want to watch the rest of the year. Obviously, they have 6 more games left, sitting at 6-5. So, I'm definitely impressed with them. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on them. Like we've said, we've talked about a few good young heavy teams that defensive wise, like the Rams, of course. We've talked about them a lot on the podcast, and the Texans are not different at all. They have a few veteran guys spread around on that team, but they're very young on that defensive side of the ball. The young guys lead the team, and you can't be disappointed if you're D'Amico Ryans. That's what you want, especially as a defensive-minded guy. You want a defense that's well-rounded. Like they say, defense wins championships. So, it's going to be a battle in the AFC South. Obviously, Jacksonville's in that conference. So, going to be a battle towards the end to see who can come out on top. But yeah, like you said, I'm very impressed with the Texans defense. They're top 5 in every major category. And they're kind of a silent team. They're kind of a team that's not talked about much, obviously, because they are 6-5. But stats don't lie. You pull up the tape, they fly around, they create havoc, and they're a very impressive team. So definitely going to keep an eye on the Texans going forward. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the quarterback job. Obviously, D'Amico Ryans is going to have a very tough decision on his hands, but that defense, if they keep it up, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and looking at their standings, they're currently third in the AFC South with just the Jaguars and the Colts ahead of them,
That's right, the
and
Colts. Yeah, I forgot about the Colts. Yeah,
they're only 2 games back from
yeah,
first place. So it's not like they're out of this
for
division
sure.
completely. If you can if you can place a manageable offense, whoever the quarterback is, and then you have the defense continuing to play well, this they're still in this division.
Oh, for
So
sure.
um, especially the Jags only one game back from second place, but very interesting division to look at going forward. I think CJ Stroud will get the start going forward. I just don't see them benching him for Davis Mills, a guy who was with them before they drafted CJ Stroud. So I don't know, but the CJ Stroud was struggling, pre-injury. So I guess that's why some people would think that CJ Stroud might go to second string behind him at the moment now, just the way Davis Mills and Offense has been running. But like I said, third place in the division, far from over for them. They're still, a very good team after starting 0-3, like I said. So very good for them in terms of what they've been able to do despite the injuries and whatnot. So kudos to them. Um, Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs versus another AFC South opponent in the Indianapolis Colts. This was a early 1 p.m. slate game. It was a game I was watching from start to finish, and I do have a couple of thoughts, a lot of intel that I wanted to serve out. But Michael, I want you to get us started with this one if you don't mind.
Yeah. Like we talked about last week on the podcast, just to start on that. Um, we said, we talked about, is the Chiefs at danger of missing the playoffs, and we talked about their slate ahead of them, and over half their games remaining were above, with teams, against teams above 500 or better, and it started with the Colts this past Sunday. They had to come out and make a statement. Andy Reid was kind of pushed into a corner. Patrick Mahomes kind of pushed into a corner. And they, it was like hey, let's go out. You got to go out and prove it this week. And I think they did. Obviously, a gritty win, 23-20. I think it was very good defensive game from the Chiefs. Very proud of them. Spags just seems to find a way when a way is needed. But let's not discredit what the offense did. Patrick Mahomes, 29 for 46, 352 yards passing by him. He didn't have any touchdowns, but he did have a pick. But his number one guy is, obviously, we found that out, is Rashee Rice. Obviously missed a few games early in the year due to legal reasons, a suspension from the NFL. But he's came back and he's made his place on this team. 8 receptions for 141 yards this past week for him. Um, but also they got it in the run game as well. You got 46 passes from Patrick Mahomes and 30 carries from Kareem Hunt. 30 carries, 104 yards and a touchdown from him. They did it in both phases of the game. 46 passes, 30 carries from Kareem Hunt. That's just impressive, man. If you can control the ball against a good team like Indianapolis, you can move the ball down the field. 500 total yards of offense. 33 total first downs for the Chiefs, and obviously capped it off with a Harrison Butker 27-yard game-winning field goal. But impressive. I think you have to clean up the mistakes the slowness in the red zone. Only 1 for 6 in the red zone this past week. Definitely got to score the ball in the red zone, especially when you're going against a top team like the Colts. Obviously, you did win this one, but it was only about 3 points. Obviously, you had to have a game-winning field goal to win it. So you have to be able to convert in the red zone. 20 yards in. That's it's I like to play golf a lot, and they always say the most important part of the game is 100 yards in. You got to be able to figure out the short stuff. If you can convert from 20 yards in and score touchdowns at a good pace, at a good conversion rate, you're going to win games over and over again. And the Chiefs obviously pulled this one out, but 1-6 in the red zone. Got to clean that up. But for the Colts, like I said, Spags had a good game plan. It was to shut down Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, he was coming. He was talked about being maybe an MVP candidate, and they figured out a way to stop him. 16 carries for 58 yards, held him to 3.5 yards per carry. He was the only skill player on the team outside of, obviously, Daniel Jones passing wise, but running backs and wide receivers, he was the only guy to have over 50 yards, catching or rushing. So very impressive from Spags in the defense. Daniel Jones had a decent game. He managed it well. 19 for 31, 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. No picks from him. But you just look at the difference. 500 total yards for the Chiefs, only 255 total yards for the Colts. 33 first downs for the Chiefs to only 10 first down for the Colts. And they only converted half of their red zone trips as well. So Shout out to Spags, man. He's a very good defensive mind, a very well veteran coach in the NFL. One of the best, if not the best, assistants in the NFL. And he shows it week in and week out. Obviously, like we've said over and over again, the Chiefs need a win this week. They needed a win this week. You didn't want to fall farther down in the playoff picture, especially in a tight AFC, an AFC that's very power heavy. Teams that win week after week. I think the AFC right now is better than the NFC, in my opinion. I think they are very team heavy. I think there's very good teams in the NFC, but AFC is just stacked with teams. You got the Broncos, you got the Patriots, you got the Chargers. There's very good teams in the AFC. The Colts are in the AFC. Obviously, they beat them this week. It's a very, very, very good teams in the AFC. But hey, the Chiefs went in this game. Pushed against their backs against the corner. What they do? They came out and won a game. That's what you have to do. There is some winnable games on their schedule coming up. Obviously, they have Las Vegas still. They have Tennessee still. So there's winnable games on the schedule. But it doesn't get much easier. They still have to play Houston again. Obviously, we just talked about their defense. Very good defense. So there comes into there is the argument, like I said, you got to convert in the red zone. 1 for 6 in the red zone, only one touchdown on 6 red zone trips. You got to be able to score against teams like the Texans if you want to win games. If you want to win games and games and games, and you're in probably one of the toughest divisions, if not the toughest division in the NFL. You have the Chargers in the AFC West. You have the Broncos in the AFC West, and you have yourself. So you're just like the Texans. You're in third place, and you got to find a way to scratch and claw your way back to the top. Even if it is a wild card berth, obviously we've talked about it over and over again. Patrick Mahomes always shines in the playoffs. All he needs is a chance. Don't matter if he plays on the road or at home. He's going to do some special things when it comes to playoff time. We always know that. There's no denying that. We've seen it time and time again. Any football fan that doesn't want to, if any football fan wants to deny that, they're not a real football fan. We're realistic here. Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs is special. Just give him a chance. So the Chiefs have to win games. They still have a tough schedule. This is just one of many more they have to face. They got the Broncos again. They're going to have the Texans coming up. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but I think they're in a prime spot. If the defense can hold it up and Patrick Mahomes can find ways to score in the red zone, I think the Chiefs will be right back where they should be in the playoffs. So definitely going to keep an eye on them like we have all year.
Yeah, man. I mean, like you said, the Chiefs just have to win games. And like you said, they started off against Indianapolis, which is a good start. So yeah, if they dug themselves into a deep hole with just the way the AFC has been playing so far, and how how good teams are in there. Um, so they have a tough game. They have a tough game against the Dallas Cowboys, which is something that we probably wouldn't have said a couple weeks ago. Just the way Dallas is playing. But this is going to be an interesting Thanksgiving game for them. So I'm interested to see, how that plays out. Definitely be tuning in to watch that. And this is not the same Cowboys team that it was a couple weeks ago. They have the number fourth ranked offense in the league, almost scoring 30 a game in that department. But they do have almost close to dead last, the worst defense in the league. So I'm curious to see how KC handles this game. In terms of what happened against Indianapolis, like I said last week, it really was just going to depend on how well the offensive line played. They did allow 4 sacks this week against Indianapolis. And then I think what's limiting KC is they're getting off to these slow starts in the first half. And I think that's kind of what can like lead them to have these um, close losses coming into the Indianapolis Colts game. They were 0-5 in one score games. They finally picked it up this week against Indianapolis, but I think that's what their limitation is. I think they're playing too conservative. I tweeted that out on Twitter mid game. They were playing a little bit too conservative. They have athletes on the field, so I'm not sure what the whole gig is in that stage. But that's something that I personally saw. I mean, if you can hand the ball off 30 times to Kareem Hunt and get 130 out of him, I mean, great there. But I was talking about specifically the first half, only coming up with 9 points, 3 field goals. They do struggle in the red zone a lot. Um, So that's something I do have to get better at. If they want to win, a lot of these games, they have to be better in the red zone. But in terms, of what the Colts did, Daniel Jones was dealing in the first half. He didn't throw the ball in harm's way any. He was really making accurate passes. Um, he was really threatening the Chiefs defense. It's something that that you wouldn't hear about last year from seeing Daniel Jones dime up the Chiefs defense. So um, yeah, man, like I said, I think the Chiefs offense has to be more explosive to start the game. I think they have a good opportunity tomorrow against Dallas. Um, I know Andy Reid's probably licking his chops, looking at the defense of the Dallas Cowboys. I think Quentin Williams was hurt um, against Philadelphia on Sunday, so I don't know if he's questionable or will he be out for this short week against KC. So, but if he is out, that'll be a huge loss to that Dallas defense, which is the guy they already traded for a couple weeks ago. So really interested to see how tomorrow's game leads. But yeah, man, Chiefs improved to 6-5. I don't think they're gonna win their division unless Broncos just have a complete meltdown and they lose a lot of their rest of their games. But so Casey's gonna need a lot of help to get into the playoffs. And they're just gonna have to keep winning games. So if they can do that, they'll be perfect. But like you said, good start beating Indianapolis. So really good on their part. Let's see here. What do we got next? We have
Dallas and
Dallas
Philly.
Cowboys versus Philadelphia Eagles. Yep. So I guess I'll start this one off.
Yeah, go ahead.
And just a quick little mini rundown. Dallas was down 21-0, and they were able to come back and score 24 unanswered points, their largest comeback in franchise history. So really good props to Dallas and that offense, and especially their defense, holding Philadelphia to 0 points in the
Matt
second half.
Eberflus.
Um,
Matt
yeah,
Eberflus
I think
finally did something good.
yep, he was in his bag on defense in the second half. So really good props to them for staying resilient. Um, Down 21-0 against the defending champs at home. Most teams would, you know, just completely fall apart after that. But Dak and the offense was on point, man. I mentioned, well, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Dak and Pickens have been lethal this year. I thought Pickens was not gonna have this much production coming into Dallas this year. I thought he was just gonna be that second wideout next to CeeDee Lamb that was gonna get those deep balls that Dak likes to throw to. Um, but he's proving me wrong, man. Second in the league in receiving, just behind JSN. So, that combination of Dak and Pickens has been deadly. Panthers, we know it. As Panther fans, he torched us when we were playing them. And then he picked it up in the second half against Philly. So, man, if that combination can get going, and then the CD Lamb can also sort of pick up the pace and get back to his, usual self, that would be, already big to loaded offense in terms of points per game. So, but I mean, yeah, man, second in the NFC East, right behind Philly. So still at 5-5-1. So they still got some work to do, but yeah, but they're in a good spot right now in terms of having the worst defense in the league, pretty much. Um, I think they're gonna need to have that offensive production on a regular basis going forward. If they want to have chances to, still be in the playoff picture, but it really just depends on that defense. How that defense going to play. You're not going to come back 21-0 all the time. And have these kind of comebacks. So you're just gonna have to stay, consistent in terms of what you're gonna do on both sides of the ball. So I think, but in terms of against Philly, I thought they played very well in the second half, really picked it up. So kudos to them, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Like we've said all year, Matt Eberflus has struggled as a defense coordinator in Dallas. I think he was probably on the hot seat in that inside that organization. Obviously, we know Jerry Jones is quick to fire anybody that isn't producing the way he wants them to. But him and Brian Schottenheimer, first year head coach. Shout out to him. He's definitely got the most out of that offense, especially Dak Prescott. I think this is one of his more impressive seasons as the quarterback in Dallas. 23 for 36, 354 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, but like you said, I was watching that game early, and the Eagles were just dominating in every aspect. It just seems like it was same old Dallas defense we've seen all year. Couldn't stop anything, and Hurts was dealing. Saquon was well. Both AJ and Devontae Smith were doing well outside, and it all changed in a quick instance in the second quarter. Like you said, Dallas 24 unanswered points. The Eagles didn't score after like the 12-minute mark in the second quarter. They didn't score ever again. Obviously, they went 3 for 3 in the red zone, but they never got back to the red zone ever again, and they never scored ever again in the game. But shout out to Dallas, man. Like you said, George Pickens has impressed week in and week out. I think his chemistry with Dak Prescott really grew when CeeDee Lamb was out earlier in the year. Dak seemed to have to find his number one guy, his new number one guy in that interim slot, and that was GP. But it seems like GP might be still number one in Dallas right now. He's getting the most production, 9 receptions, 146 yards, and a touchdown this past week. Lamb only had 4 receptions for 75 yards. Obviously, they're two very good wide receivers. But like you said, I had my doubts as well about George Pickens. I didn't know what to expect. He was kind of a weird case in Pittsburgh. He was up and down a lot. The coaching staff, there was internal sources saying that he was a drama queen, and he had locker room problems. He was kind of a guy that nobody wanted to be around, nobody wanted to be a teammate with. But he definitely has proved people wrong in Dallas. He's definitely, changed his mentality. He's definitely changed how he acts. Obviously, he's the same old George Pickens. You know, wants to flaunt in your face. Wants to celebrate, but he doesn't seem like he's crashing out anymore. He doesn't seem like he's a head case. He doesn't seem like you're not hearing much about him being a bad problem in the locker room. And it might be a Brian Schottenheimer thing. And obviously, it seems like he's a very energetic head coach. He's obviously a guy that I think the players love a lot. He's having growing pains. It's his first year as the head coach. He's never been a head coach before. He was the offensive coordinator before this, but 5-5-1, and you're the tie being the Green Bay where you scored 40 points. Obviously, your defense let up 40 points, but you scored 40 points. It seems like the Dallas offense has just done very well all year. Obviously, they scored 30 points against us, or almost 30 points against us, and we still barely pulled out a win. But it's because their defense is absolutely atrocious. But from the middle of the second quarter to the end of the game, Matt Eberflus, like you said, was willing and dealing. He was in his bag, obviously. And it's like you said, I'm really, really excited for that game tomorrow. Thanksgiving Day, Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's going to be a very good game. I love the whole slate among Thursday tomorrow. It's a very good slate. You start with the Lions and Packers. Middle of the day, you get Dallas and Kansas City, and you end it out with the AFC North matchup between the Ravens and the Bengals. Joe Burrow's back, Lamar Jackson. I think it's a great slate from start to finish all day tomorrow. And I think the most one I'm excited for is that game at 4 o'clock. I'm very excited to see, can Brian Schottenheimer keep it going? Can Matt Eberflus stop Patrick Mahomes, who's trying to make a playoff push? And can Spags stop Brian Schottenheimer in that offense? I think it's gonna be a great game. But yeah, I got to give props where it's due, man. Dallas balled out. Early in the game, you thought, man, Philly's going to run away with this. It might be a 40-point loss. You didn't seem like Dallas could do anything on offense, and like we said, it was the same old Dallas defense we've seen all year. But something switched right there in the second quarter, and they took over. 479 total yards of offense, 25 first downs. They were 3 for 5 in the red zone. And obviously, Brandon Aubrey finished it off with a 42-yard game-winning field goal. Shout out to Dallas. Shout out to Brian Schottenheimer. I think a lot of people doubted him. I think a lot of people questioned Jerry Jones and his hire. You get rid of Mike McCarthy, a guy that the fans didn't really love anymore. Obviously, Jerry Jones wanted gone, but you promote somebody within his staff. So it was kind of a questionable decision by many of the fans, many of the people around the NFL. But Brian Schottenheimer's proven people wrong. I think he's a very energetic guy. He's a younger guy. Obviously I've seen the locker room videos. Um, he brings the energy. I think that's what a lot of NFL teams want nowadays. They want young guys who bring energy. There's older coaches that still get it done. Obviously, Andy Reid is a prime example. But the NFL is trending towards a younger head coach mindset. Obviously Shane Steichen in Indianapolis. You got you got Brian Schottenheimer in Dallas. You got who else was I thinking of? Uh, I'm blanking right now, but I mean Dave Canales in Carolina. It's the multiple young head coaches in the NFL. You can look around. There's probably over half the NFL is 50 and under in age wise. Ben Johnson in Chicago. That's what I was trying to think of. It's a young head coach league nowadays. There's obviously, like I said, obviously there's the older guys that are still getting it done. Yeah, Sean McVay, Mike McDonald in Seattle. It's young coaches 40 and under who are just getting it done. 40 and under who they want the energetic guys. They want the guys who bring the locker room together, who can relate to the players, who are closer in age to them. And I think Brian Schottenheimer might be that guy. Obviously, it's early in his head coaching career, but he's making waves in the NFL. He's making noise. His offense is definitely improved from the Mike McCarthy era. But you got to be able to solidify that defense. There's some games I think you could have won 2 or 3 more games if your defense would have done something. One of them games being Carolina. I mean, I don't know if we were the better team. I think that we had a good day on offense, but our defense struggled against the Dallas offense because Dallas has a good offense. You could have pulled out one against Green Bay, that tie, 40-40 tie in overtime. That's 2 wins right there that could have turned you from 5-5-1 to um, 7-4. That's a big difference. So you look at the close games they've had, and it comes down to the defense. So definitely interested to see what Dallas does with their defense the rest of the way. But got to give my shout outs to Brian Schottenheimer. He's done a very good job in Dallas with that offense so far. He's getting the most out of Dak Prescott, George Pickens, Devontae, um, you know, CeeDee Lamb, and then Javonte Williams as well at running back. 20 carries, 87 yards, over 100 yards total. So they're getting production from everywhere. Running backs, wide receivers, even tight ends. Jake Ferguson's having a very good year at tight end, and that offensive line is doing very well as well. So, not going to keep going on, but yeah, I'm impressed with Dallas, and I'm excited to see what they do on Thanksgiving against Kansas City.
I'm not Casey. I mean, they're right there in the
Oh, for
playoffs.
sure, for sure.
You know, just see what happens tomorrow and go from there. Yeah, man, really important game for Dallas in the playoffs
Both teams,
tomorrow.
both teams.
Yeah, both teams. So must win for both teams. So pretty sure both teams can split that state. I think like you said, it's going to be very interesting to see how Spags match up with one of the best offenses in the league, and how KC goes up against the worst defense in the league.
Yeah,
So it's kind of flip flop. So we're gonna see how that goes. Um, but now moving on to what everyone has came here to watch and listen about is the Carolina Panthers finally having a primetime game for the first time since they faced the Chicago Bears on Thursday Night Football, which was Bryce Young's rookie year. They didn't have one last year, which was, fair. Wasn't very good. But, finally having a primetime game. Panther fans really excited coming in. Big, or probably our biggest game since like the Bucks game back in 2022 when we faced Tom Brady and them on the road.
for
That had
sure.
big playoff implications. And this one had a lot of implications. First place in the division was on the line here, and the Panthers couldn't get it done. They could not get it done, and there's a whole lot of messy stuff to go through. You want to go over? You want to start off, or do you want me to start off?
I can start off if you want me to. That's fine.
All right, yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. Um, First off, like we said, this team seems to just flip flop every week in and week out. I'm tired of even just getting upset anymore because I'm used to it at this point. It's a team of week by week basis. There's some teams that they're constantly good week in and week out, and then there's us who you don't know which team's going to show up. Last week, 515 total yards of offense. I thought, and I told everybody, I said I'm not going to look at one game and say, oh yeah, heck yeah, 515 yards total offense. This offense is clicking now. I said I want to see it consistently, and we didn't see it this week. Only 238 yards of total offense. Um, Nobody, I don't think anybody in our skill positions got over 50 yards. Tedero McMillan only had 35 yards and a touchdown. Rico, this one really pisses me off. 6 carries for 38 yards. Obviously he showed his frustration on Twitter afterwards with an emoji, and he answered it today. He said, "Look, I was frustrated. They had a soft box. They weren't loading the boxes against us." Um, and he's right. I mean, he was efficient in his run and his 6 carries. You know, um, over 6 yards per carry, and on 6 carries, that's 2 carries. That's a first down. I mean, we got to be able to. If they're showing a soft box, if they're showing a 6-man box, a 7-man box, and we think we match up well, let's run the ball. Rico Dowdle is a very good running back. He has shown it all year. We got to give the ball to our playmakers, and Rico Dowdle is a playmaker. Chuba Hubbard only had 3 carries, but he averaged 5 yards per carry. 16 yards on 3 carries for him. That's 5 yards per carry. So obviously the run game was there. We just didn't use it to our advantage, and that's the problem I have with David Canales is he's so wishy washy. He's a guy who claims he's a run first kind of guy when it comes to play call, but then he only runs it 9 times. I mean, are we serious? You run it 9 times with your 2 top backs, and you pass it 29 times with Bryce Young. I don't care how good he did last week. I mean, this is a very good San Francisco defense. We knew that. Very good San Francisco defense. Robert Saleh is a very good defensive coordinator. One of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. No doubt about it. Obviously, he didn't have a good go in New York as the head coach, but that's totally different than being a defensive coordinator. As a defensive coordinator, he's proven time and time again he is a top-notch defensive coordinator. And there's some plays that just had you dumbfounded. I mean, there's some plays in the red zone where I was absolutely like, I just wanted to turn TV off. I mean, play action from the 1 yard line. Are we serious? Play action from the 1 yard line, we throw a pick. 2 red zone trips, no touchdowns. We only had 12 first downs. We were 1 for 7 on third down. And like I said, only 238 total yards. T-Mac, 2 receptions, 35 yards and a touchdown. Coker, 3 receptions, 32 yards. Bryce Young was 18 for 29, 170 yards, and he had more picks than he had touchdowns. So, it's really disappointing because our defense, especially our corners, shout out to J.C. Horn, shout out to Mike Jackson. Both them balled out this past Monday. They forced 3 interceptions between the both of them. Obviously, J.C. had 2, and Mike Jack had one of his own. Saved the touchdown. Mike Jack did. They did allow 340 yards of total offense, but it seemed like the offense was on the field all the time. It seemed like defense was on the field all the time. Like we said, we were 1 for 7 on third down. We had multiple 3-and-outs. The defense was just gassed. Obviously, we had multiple injuries. J.C. Horn with a concussion. Corey Thornton's out for the year with a broken leg. It seemed like we were dropping like flies left and right. Obviously, we didn't have either of our inside linebackers in Christian Roseman or Trevin Wallace. Kryes Barnes and what's his name? Claude and Sherless was our 2 inside linebackers this past week. Obviously, Dave Canales is saying that Trevin Wallace will be back, so that's big. That is the guy who wears the green dot during games. So it's good to have that kind of guy back, but I don't think it's going to make a difference. Obviously, the Rams are a very good team, and I think it's going to be another showing of this past Monday, if not worse. I don't know if we can do anything on offense against a very good, if not the best defense in the NFL in the Rams. I'm very scared to see what happens. Obviously, the offensive line's been shuffled around multiple times this year, and that pass rush is absolutely insane. I watched them against the Buccaneers this past Sunday night, and it just seemed like every time Baker Mayfield got the ball in his hands off the snap, it was Jared Verse or Braden Fisk was right there to sack him every time or create pressure, and it just obviously it led to an injury at a certain point. So prayers up to Baker Mayfield. Obviously, I don't wish an injury on anybody, but that LA Rams defense flew around, man. That was, I mean, it was scary to watch. You know, and with the offense that's so wishy washy, we don't really know what our identity is right now. Obviously, Dave Canales says his identity is run first, but you only give the ball to Rico and Chuba 9 times on the ground, and you pass it 29 times. And it's not like we were down 40 points and we're trying to come back. There was points where we were only down one score. Run your offense. Establish what you're good at. Obviously, the run game has been very good all year. It's obviously shown that it was good that game. Both your running backs, Rico and Chuba, were averaging over 5 yards a carry. So let's run the ball. Let's establish the run, then play action off of it. It obviously wasn't the plan this week. Only 12 first downs for us. You know, going from 515 total yards on the road last week to you know, going on the road and only having half of that and 238 total yards is just sad. It's just sad to watch. I think we kept Brock Purdy under wraps. You know, he's only 23 for 32. He didn't even throw for 200 yards. One touchdown from him early in the game to Jawan Jennings. But like I said, J.C. Horn with 2 picks. Mike Jack had a pick. CMC, I think he had a quiet 142 total yards. Obviously, he had the ball in his hands a lot, but it didn't seem like he was getting chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. He was just
Yeah.
methodically taking it down the field. He had 24 carries for 89 yards, 142 total, and he did have only one touchdown. But the name of the game all year has been guard and tight ends. I think George Kittle had a good game, 6 receptions for 78 yards. Obviously, the Panthers, as much as the defense has improved from last year, we do struggle to guard tight ends. It's been the case game after game. You know, Miami, Darren Waller balled out against us. Jake Ferguson balled out against us against Dallas. Dalton Kincaid looked good with Buffalo. So, you know, obviously it's been a struggle all year to guard tight ends with this defense. They have gotten better, no doubt. You know, you went from dead last in every category last year to top 10 in some and top 15 in others. So, you know, I'm very impressed with Ejiro Rivera. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. You know, obviously you can't. You had your number one corner go down. You had a Corey Thornton who's been playing valuable minutes lately go down with a broken leg. You already had both your inside linebackers out this week, so you know obviously he was pinned against the wall. Edro Rivera was pinned. He was in a bad spot. Definitely deeper in the game, he was in a bad spot after injuries had occurred. But we were still out there swinging, man. We were still out there swinging like we were in a dogfight. And I'm proud of the defense. I'm not gonna, you know, we held San Francisco to 20 points. 20 points. We threw 2 turnovers on offense. We gave the ball away twice on offense. We should have scored both those times in the red zone. Obviously, just dumb play calling. Dave Canales pissed me off a lot this week. He's done that a lot in his tenure as the head coach. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, we've talked about it on and off the podcast how angry we are at him, but I'm not mad at the defense. You know, our offense went 1 for 7 on third downs. Like I said, multiple 3-and-outs. So when the defense is on the field time after time, and you already have injuries and you're already thin depth wise, it's hard to, you know, not let up points. It's hard to not let up yards. It's hard to, you know, not give up the plays, and ultimately only allowing 20 points is a win in my book. If you do what you did last week in Atlanta, or even remotely close to it, this game is way closer than 29, and it might be a win. There was no doubt chances to win this game. We just gave it away on offense. Offense struggled again. That's been the name of the game all year. When the offense struggles, the team struggles. The team loses when the offense loses. And, you know, that wasn't the case last year, but it is the case this year. And we got to fix it fast. You're back to 500. You're 6-6 on the year. You do have the Bucks twice. You're only half a game back in the NFC South. Obviously, like we said, you had a chance to be in sole possession of it if you won. But, you know, they don't have an easy test this week either. You know, the Cardinals are a very challenging team. I think the Cardinals are gonna win. I think you had the Cardinals winning as well. You know, no bias there. I just think, you know, Baker Mayfield's not gonna play. Teddy Bridgewater is kind of he's kind of inexperienced. You know, he's been out of the league, in the league, so you know, I'm not really trusting him. You know, especially with what I saw against the Rams, he didn't look good at all. So we'll see. I don't think we're going to beat the Rams either, so it don't really matter. And then we go on a bye next week, and you know, hopefully get some people back healthy. I don't think J.C. Horn play this week unless he gets out of concussion protocol. Corey Thornton's out. We had multiple signings on defense these past 2 days. Obviously, Isaiah Simmons was one of them, the former eighth overall pick by the Arizona Cardinals. He was one pick behind Derek Brown in that draft. He was signed. We signed two corners, so we'll see what happens. I don't think we're going to win this week. We look at the preview for the Rams. Rams by double digits. I think. I think the Rams will win by 14 plus. I'm not expecting much going into Sunday. Obviously, in our pick'em, this is the first time I've won against the Panthers all year. I'm just going to be realistic. I don't think we have any chance at all against the Rams, especially with the injuries on defense and the offensive struggles. So, you know, just hopefully stay healthy going into the bye week against the Rams. That's the name of the game. Just stay healthy. You're gonna be only one game behind 500 coming off the bye, with 4 games to go. 2 of them being the Buccaneers. So just try to stay healthy. Try to maintain your guys. Try to get those injured guys back healthy, and maybe make a run in those final 4 games. But right now, I don't see much happening for us.
Yeah, man. I mean, you made a lot of points. And I don't know if you saw my TikTok that I made with my rant.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I had a lot to say on that, but I definitely have a lot to say right here. First things first, I don't think Dave's never gonna say it. Dave Canales, he's never gonna say it, but I don't think he truly has confidence in Bryce Young, to fully unlock what this offense can really do. Besides when they play Atlanta, I mean, besides, why does every time they play Atlanta, they're throwing the ball downfield consistently. They're throwing all these intermediate passes. They're doing all these play action and whatnot, running the ball well. But whenever you play another team besides Atlanta, you just go ghost. You don't know what you are on offense. And Dave does. I don't think Dave knows how to call plays. Um, I think his ego is way too big for himself. He needs to give up the play calling to Brad Isaac, or whoever the case might be. But he's not. But he's not going to do it. His ego is too big for himself. But in terms of the 49ers game, how many? If you had to guess, how many passes did Carolina throw over 15 yards against Atlanta? If you had to guess,
Against Atlanta, I'd say
yeah,
9, 10 maybe.
9. Okay, well, we threw one this past week against
How
or
many was it
against
against Atlanta? Do you remember how it was?
I don't know how much.
It
But
had to
like
have
you said,
been.
I
It
think
had to have been close to double digits, not over double digits.
yeah. So we threw only one pass over 15 yards, and that was the touchdown to Tedero McMillan. So one pass over 15 yards.
And it was a touchdown.
Not
So
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure, what Dave is thinking, what his logic is. You had success throwing the ball deep against Atlanta, but then you say, let's not do that anymore. It's too good for us. Too good for us. Let's not
yeah,
do that. And like you said, 49ers completely dominated. The time of possession was 37 minutes to 22. So our offense could not stay on the field at all. And 49ers did a really good job of, just burning that clock, making sure, their offense was solidified and ran efficiently. Obviously, like you said, Brock Purdy threw 3 interceptions, but that was very early in the game. And those were opportunities that we should have capitalized on. I mean, you're at the 1 yard line, you throw it, play action. Looking back on the film, Bryce Young had a touchdown right there. So I mean, it's not like it was the worst play call in the world, but it definitely wasn't good.
right,
Um, he had Mitchell Evans wide open, sneaking through the back of the end zone. And if Bryce just threw it, early instead of waiting, that would have been a touchdown right there.
right.
But he also could have ran the ball as well. So he had options, but he decides to, throw the ball late, and that allows, with that small, window that the defense has, it allows them to get that quicker, and get that interception. So there's that. So that's a missed opportunity. If we converted on all those interceptions that we had on off that we could have had 23 points, 23 points to 20. We would have won the game if we would have converted those interceptions to scores, which was very doable. We could have. On a 3rd and 4, you're at the red zone, 3rd and goal, 3rd and 4. Dave, you want to know what Dave Canales does? A a swing pass to Chuba Hubbard. Swing pass. And it's not like Bryce Young. He didn't even go through his progressions. He was one read on Chuba Hubbard whatsoever. Xavier Leggett had a dig route that was wide open. If he lets the play develop, you have a touchdown right there.
Yeah.
Throw that ball. But Chuba Hubbard swings out and he just, boom, he just does it right there. And 49ers are playing man coverage. So that's obviously not going to work. You have the linebacker coming up right there. So I'm not sure, what Bryce Young is doing in a situation like that. I don't know why he's just one reading one dude and it's his running back. I don't know. Maybe he should tell me. Um, but man, I'm like shaking right now because I'm like so mad. Like I'm like too, this is just making me so mad. But like I said, uh, Bryce has no confidence, in this offense, and he's not going to stay, obviously, or the receivers, to run, these deep routes, against any other teams besides Atlanta. 49ers had 23 first downs to our 12. Um, and then the defense played lights out. I mean, holding them to 20 points with the injury to J.C. Horn. I think it was in the third quarter. I'm pretty sure. Um, Coming out of the game after that. But props to the defense. I'm not gonna say anything bad about them. But man, this offense just lacks consistency. Probably the worst team in the league in terms of that. You just never know what you're going to get out of this offense, and I'm not expecting anything this week. So I mean, what's Dave Canales going to do? I mean, I know damn well he's not going to throw the ball downfield. That's what I know he's not going to do. But I mean, if you look at the offense, I mean, there's no real threat on offense for the Carolina Panthers. You have rookie T Mac, who is our best offensive player, yes, but he does have his weaknesses. He does struggle to catch the ball. He's had multiple drops this year. He dropped an easy curl route which would have given us a first down, continue pushing the drive early in the game, but he dropped it. Um, and then non-existent deep balls all year. Rarely that happens. Um, Due to Dave Canales, not to T Mac or anyone like that. But I also think XL is not going to be a player on offense that defenses are going to game plan on. I don't think he's going to be that, mainly due to Dave Canales not opening up the playbook. But also, I think he's just very clumsy, and he doesn't know where he's at most of the time. 2 times this year that he's had illegal touching on the year. One which costed us a first down. Um, he stepped out of bounds and then came back in. I mean, like, dude, like you're in your second year, you're in the NFL, you should know where you are. Uh, you know, I don't think I've ever done that while I was playing football. Like, I mean, it's pretty easy to know where you're at. But so he also just lacks awareness. Jimmy Horn Jr. only in for motion plays. Literally the only reason he's in. He's a decoy, and defenses know that. Whenever he's in the game, he's not getting the ball. He only caught it one time, but it was a basic check down. So I mean, it's not like he was running a deep route or anything. And then Jenny Coker is just there. I mean, most of his routes that he did run against the 49ers were digs. Um, so obviously, that's not going to work there. And then the tight ends just suck. I mean, Mitchell Evans only has like 2 touchdowns on the year. I mean, they're not very long touchdowns, only from the goal line. But I mean, that's bad. And Tommy Tremble, don't know what you're getting out of him. He's not a real tight end one, to compare to George Kittle or Travis Kelsey or any of these other up and coming tight ends like Tyler Warren of the Indianapolis Colts, a rookie who the Colts have miles better than Tommy Tremble, who's our best tight end on the team. And then Jatavion Sanders, dude, I don't even know how he's still getting snaps. How is he still getting snaps? This dude doesn't know what to do besides run hitches. He don't know what to do. And then his hands aren't good. And then that's what he's known for coming out of Texas with his hands, receiving tight end, something that we didn't have. We were happy to get him, but he hasn't done anything. Yeah, man, I mean, just an inconsistency there. CMC printed his fingerprint on this game. In terms of the 49ers, George Kittle, like you said, he had a very good game, which I expected. I mean, Panthers struggle to cover tight ends, all year, so I wasn't expecting us to hold him down. But I mean, and then you also said Robert Saleh, despite all the injuries to Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, your two key best players on defense, he has some guys ready to play. He has them focused, and they were playing physical. They're a very good defense, so got to give your props to Robert Saleh. And two things can be right. I see a lot of Panther fans online say it's not Bryce Young's fault, it's not Dave Canales' fault, or whatever the case might be. But two things can be right. Bryce Young is a struggling quarterback with poor decision making. That's facts. That is 100% facts. I mean, just pull up the film. And if someone disagrees with that, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just saying that to protect Bryce Young. And then, but Dave Canales is holding a lot back from him by not spreading the offense out and the lack of deep plays and the consistency there. So two things can be right. I just think Dave Canales is a terrible play caller, dude. Like I've said it multiple times, so just want to remind that out. And it's not like he doesn't even try to push the ball downfield. He's just like I don't even know what he's doing. He's like he reminds me of of me when I used to play Madden a couple of years ago. This is literally how I used to play Madden a couple of years ago. I would literally just play coach suggestions and just do whatever. That's literally what he's doing right now. He's just picking the first play that he sees right there on the play sheet, and he doesn't even try to like go through the playbook or whatever. But yeah, man. I mean, there's just like so much stuff that this team needs to work on in the off season. 6-6, but yeah, I mean, so much stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like running out of things to like rant on about, but I
yeah,
want
for
to
sure.
keep on doing that. But in terms of the Rams and the Panthers preview, I actually have quite a few stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
So obviously you already made your prediction, and we both made our predictions. Rams will beat the Panthers this week. Um, and this Rams obviously are the best team in the league. I don't think there's an argument for that. They're just talented on both sides of the ball, explosive on both sides of the ball, top 10 on offense and defense. Defense ranks ninth on both sides of the ball, almost averaging 30 points per game on offense, while their defense is allowing 16.3 points per game. And then you have Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams as the big three on offense. Don't forget Kyron Williams, who's an explosive receiver as a backfield receiving and running the ball. So just depends on if Christian Rosenboom is playing. He is questionable, so he might play this week. And then, like you said, Trevor Moss is going to be back. So look to see how our linebackers match up against Kyron Williams. Um, and then in terms of the receivers, like I said, Adams, he's the red zone threat. He's the guy that we have to watch in the red zone uh, this week. While Puka Nacua is like the deep threat, intermediate dude, guy who gets short, quick passes and then turns them into big play yards. So our if Horn's not going to play, that's going to be a huge loss. Um, and then Trevon Moehrig, who will be out for one game due to a suspension. He's not going to be playing, so that's also a huge loss on defense because he's been one of our best defensive guys this year. So interested to see who will pick up the slack in terms of whoever fills in that position. Um, but I generally think like this defense is going to maul us.
Yeah,
Like
we're screwed, buddy. Let's be
it's
honest.
going to be crazy. I mean, their defense consists of young talent, big young talent like Cam Curl, physical DB, former Washington Commander, Byron Young, who leads the team in sacks with 9, Jared Verse right beside him with 6. He made his presence felt last week against Tampa Bay. Then you have Emmanuel Forbes, former Commander as well. He has revived his career with the Los Angeles Rams. He went from being stunned by AJ Brown to now being a shutdown corner for the Rams, and he's having a stellar year. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes the Pro Bowl this year as a corner. And then you also have Kobe Durant on the other side, who had an interception this past week against Tampa Bay, who actually stripped the ball from K-Dot and returned it for a pick six. That actually got me out of my seat. That made me hype. I ain't gonna lie. And then you got Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk on the D line as well. So just listening at D line is just like, you're
And
just gonna,
that tight end Landman, he's good too.
yeah.
He's a baller.
So obviously the Panthers are gonna have their hands full this week. They are at home, but it doesn't make a difference. And it's the same team that scored 7 points against the Saints at home this week, a couple weeks ago. On the first drive of the game, and then do anything after that. So what are you going to expect when the Rams come to town? I mean, they're the best team in the league. So obviously got a lot of stuff going on there. But if I had to make a score prediction, you said this could be worse than the Bills game,
It could be.
and we had Andy Dalton.
It could be.
So I'm gonna say like Rams 38 to Panthers 6.
Give me 42-7.
42-7. You think we get a touchdown? That
Garbage time tutty. Garbage time tutty. To
I
like
wouldn't be surprised.
Xavier Leggett. It'd probably be some BS like Xavier Leggett gets like a 30-yard touchdown or
Bro,
something.
they're probably gonna like drive down the field with like 3 minutes left. Dave's probably gonna throw the ball like 20 yards downfield after throwing the ball 10
He act like he
yards
in his
and
bag.
below. Yeah, like might as well. But yeah, man. I mean, it just really depends on what kind of Dave Canales we're gonna get. Are we gonna get the same one against Atlanta? I doubt it, unless he finally grew some. And he unleashes the playbook, you know, then maybe we'll have a chance, but I doubt it. Um, until he, just got to see, offense click consistently. Um, and are we going to run the ball? Only ran the ball like a total of 14 times as a team combines against the 49ers. So, I mean, we'll see what happens there, but not really excited about the potential outcome for this game. Now, if we do win it, and that's a big if, big if, guess what? I'm still not going to be impressed
No,
because
absolutely not. Because then we're
you're
gonna
not
crap the bed after the bye.
you're
We're gonna
not fooling
crap
me,
the bed
bro.
after the bye week. We'll crap the bed. 200 yards of total offense after the bye week if we beat the Rams. So I ain't even gonna get excited.
Yeah, man, you're not fooling me. Do that again against the Saints when we come back and whatnot, and maybe on the road, and maybe we'll have some discussion, potential discussion. But 6-6, going against the Rams this Sunday. We'll see how everything plays out. Guys, thank you so much for. Oh wait, I forgot. Buy or sell hot takes, bro.
Oh, I didn't put
Forgot
one
the buy
down.
or sell hot takes. All right,
You didn't put it
quick.
in the list. I didn't know if we were doing it this week.
That's my fault. I forgot. I completely forgot. Buy or sell. Do you have one in mind that you like think of
Dude, I don't
that you?
know because guess what? My buy or sell is still alive. My buy or sell is still
Oh
alive.
yeah.
The Raiders are not winning another game. They're gonna get the number 1 overall pick. They're gonna fire Pete Carroll, and they're going to draft Fernando Mendoza, quarterback Indiana, as their franchise guy. So that's my hot take. I'm still standing. It's still standing. The Browns won, so Raiders, you suck.
That's fair. That was the game that.
Boom, baby, let's go. Shador
and
Sanders.
forward. Watch them beat like the Chiefs or something like that.
Dude, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. But if my buy or sell hot take, let's see. All right, I got one. A lot of people aren't gonna like it, but even though I think that the Chicago Bears are fraudulent, they are first in the division with Green Bay and who else is right behind them? Who's I'm on blank. NFC North. Who's in the NFC North?
Detroit?
Detroit, yeah. even with Detroit and Green Bay right behind them, give me the Chicago Bears to win the NFC North. Give me it. They're 8-3, bro. 8-3. They're sneaking out these games with their defense.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
If the Bears can find consistency on offense, they can
Okay,
do it.
if they come out,
And the Lions are struggling, and the Lions have been struggling as of late. They
yeah,
just
fair.
finished the dogfight with the Giants. They just finished the dogfight with the Giants at
Okay, fair.
home
But
in
listen,
overtime.
listen. I'm gonna sell the hot take right now. But if they happen to beat the Eagles on Friday, we can revisit this. We'll revisit this if they beat the Eagles. If they beat the
I
Eagles,
have the
I might be moved.
I have them winning against Philadelphia, man. So let's see.
I do not have them beating Philadelphia. So we'll revisit that when the time comes.
All right, fair enough. But that's it, guys, for episode 12 of the Between the Lines podcast. Um, thank y'all for watching. We're currently filming on Thanksgiving Eve. Thanksgiving's tomorrow, so y'all have a happy Thanksgiving to
Happy
whoever's
Thanksgiving.
watching tomorrow. And we'll be back here next Monday
Monday.
for episode 13. So thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all next week, man.
Thank y'all. Happy Thanksgiving.